Telkom Business, behind South African businesses' drive to thrive.
Africa continues to have a thriving female entrepreneurship culture, despite several systematic challenges. The 2021 Mastercard Index of Women Entrepreneurs identified Botswana, South Africa, and Ghana among the countries with the highest global proportion of women entrepreneurs. Today's roundtable discussion will look at women in business and why entrepreneurship is vital for its ability to advance the role of women in society and to generate wealth. Welcome to the special edition of the Entrepreneurial SME. I'm your host, Mabote. Joining me for this conversation are founder and CEO of Seed Linda Omara-Koledade, the managing executive of Telkom Consumer Broadband and Smarthome, Makgosi Mabaso. And joining us on Zoom is the head of business and growth marketing at Redplan Business Consulting, Irene Okoye. Good evening, ladies, and thank you very much for joining me, the rose among the thorns. I'm going to start with you, Irene, and maybe you start telling us a bit about who Redplan is so that my next question would be more relevant.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rams, and for picking up on this really important conversation. So what we do as Redplan is we're a social enterprise that's really motivated by entrepreneurs and helping emerging entrepreneurs to, first of all, figure themselves out from why does my business exist to helping them start a business on the right foundation. So that's where it is. It's more about finding the connection between the impact that entrepreneurs want to make, all the business solutions that they want to provide, and helping them through the process.
I continue with you. So, Irene, you have so much experience in entrepreneurship, coaching and development. I've seen your work in the previous organizations for which you worked. My intros seem to paint a glorious picture, but is it? Are we really seeing female entrepreneurship growing and getting to a point where we ideally should have it?
I would like to say in 2023, we are making the strides. I always start by looking at it positively, but I believe that there's so much that can be done. We don't have the involvement as compared to, in fact, let me just quote the statistics in terms of South Africa at the moment. The majority of our population is actually female. There's 51%, according to the last statistics. And when you look at the involvement of women, in fact, in the survey that you just mentioned, the Mastercard one, you'll see there's only 21% of women who are part of the formal economy. So who are these people? If the consumers are women, because the majority of our society and the makeup of our South African context right now is women. Why aren't we having enough involvement of women? I would like to say that there's a lot that's being done from a policy perspective, but I'm more, rather anxious about when we're actually going to put that policy tested, rather put the road to rubber on the road, if that's a term, When is this policy that we've created? When are we going to see implementation? There's so much that's being done from a financing perspective, but are we really applying a gender lens to what we're doing in order to encourage women involvement in the economy?
In a manner of speaking, Linda, Irene has asked the first question I wanted to ask for me, so I'm grateful to her. Why are we not seeing the strides that we need to be seeing?
I would say there's a number of factors that hinder women in business, and perhaps we need to focus and work on them. Firstly, I would definitely say education and training. Irrespective of the product and service that an entrepreneur is offering, there's a lot of supplementary services that one needs to understand. It could be technology, it could be financial reporting. I would say education is one of them, and then access to finance is important. That's a big one. So women are typically not at the forefront of accessing finance. You find males are more likely to access funding from big institutions compared to females.
Is it because the gatekeepers are male?
In part, it's because the gatekeepers are male, but I'll also add that there is a gender bias with females. What I have seen is that females tend to not be as confident in pitching and presenting their business as compared to their male counterparts, even if they have an incredible business. So there's a bit of a gender bias, and also females carry a lot of load in terms of their responsibilities in society. So their attention might be slightly divided and not able to kind of pour everything into their business. So I would say yes, there's an issue in terms of the gatekeeping, but also there is a gender bias, but maybe the two go hand in hand.
Makgosi, has technology made it better? You're in this space, you work a lot with entrepreneurs. Have you seen that your work has made it lighter for women entrepreneurs out there?
Yeah, so Rams, I think it has, right? I think it has. However, and to Linda's point, the training and the education part of it lacks still, you know. So we are also in the community whereby we are overwhelming these entrepreneurs with so much technology. I think we're really at the point where they actually don't know what to do with it. They actually don't know what problems it actually solves for them, right? So the work that Irene and Linda are doing are very important, because this is where they do the work in ensuring that as they onboard all these entrepreneurs, then it's quite important to then ensure that they link the technology with solving problems, or they link the technology with how they can actually grow, you know, some of their businesses. So I do think that, and it will evolve. Remember, from a technology perspective, we're not going to stand still just because the consumers are overwhelmed. There's a lot that we're still going to do. Therefore, for Irene and Linda, it actually means that it's going to be a lot of work for them to always catch up, right? Play catch up with the entrepreneurs, you know, at all.
Other than it being daunting, it can be very daunting, technology. The other part of it would be cost. I mean, you know, somewhere Linda mentioned about how women have many responsibilities, and that always says they also have then many cost issues. Does technology come cheaper now? You know, does it help people to, do you create stuff that is so affordable to make it easier for people to get into the space and trade?
I think it does. I think over time, what I've seen, Rams, is we got to a point where the pricing was pay this and you get that. And it's big price, big money, right? Yeah. But we've also seen the evolution of pricing strategies, whereby we now start to price you per subscription, all right, which is better, because in that way you don't have to actually fork out a lot of capital on the table to actually access that technology. And that is enabled by a lot of cloud services. So we have a lot of software as a service type of solutions. For example, where you buy a CRM solution, you buy an HR solution type of solutions. Those are usually subscriptions, you know, and that, I think, it reduces the burden of the entrepreneurs to actually enter into the technology world.
Linda, your background is financial services, right? Yes. And we're going to talk about finance and funding later, but in particular, Mustard Seed, is it something that you would have seen in what you did earlier that led to what you're doing now? And in that way, explain what you do now.
Yes, yes, it literally is a result of what I do. So I've spent the better part of my career within investment banking, structuring deals for big corporates, predominantly focusing on the purchase of equity. So to the extent that a company wants to buy shares in another company, or there's a merger of two companies, or it could be an individual, a high net worth individual that's looking to take up equity, we would structure and fund it. So that has been my focus. But in me engaging with all these corporates and individuals that are high net worth, they're day-to-day ordinary people like myself that I bump into, especially entrepreneurs, who see me as an avenue, as a solution to say, Linda, I also require finance. Yeah. And every time I'll engage with them, within a minute of the conversation, I know upfront that there's no way that I could fund you from the position that I'm at. So Mustard Seed is as a result of me having that desire to want to equip and empower entrepreneurs so that they reach a point where they are bankable. They can approach financial institutions with confidence. So, yeah.
Equip? Talk to me about that.
So what we do is we engage our audience, which is predominantly entrepreneurs and professionals, via social media platforms, as well as through events. We host events. And our focus areas in terms of empowering our audience, number one is saving and investing. That's a topic that I'm really passionate about. And we partner with big investment houses in Johannesburg to host the events. Then we focus on entrepreneurship. What we do is we bring successful entrepreneurs to come tell us about their journey, talk to the audience. And then through that, I'm hoping that entrepreneurs find mentors, they're able to get coaching and build an ecosystem where you're not alone. Yeah, so we do it that way, and then we also share relevant information on our social media platforms around entrepreneurship, leadership, and investing.
You seem to want...
Yeah, no. I really just want to get to that because that's also something that's very close to my heart. And like I said earlier, that we're playing catch up, right? And we got to find a way to kind of anchor this, from the beginning of time. And what I'm talking about is, I mean, we're not talking a lot around entrepreneurships within the school systems, and that's why you can't be surprised why you would have women that struggle to stand in front of a lot of investors and pitch a proposal there, because I don't think it's something that we nurture, right? I don't think it's something that we nurture. And I just think that as South Africans, looking even at all stakeholders, we got to find a way to do that a bit better, or else it will just always be something that we catch up. And I don't know if we'll be here long enough, to be able to close the gap all the time. So we got to do it. I think we got to do it a little bit differently. There's a place for Linda and Irene. I think there is that place, but there's also a place for us to make sure that we anchor it at the right levels.
Irene, when you started, you sort of posed policy conundrums towards my direction, which I can't deal with. I can't even give you the answers to that. But I'm going to ask you to answer a question for me. We see so many men getting into the space. They fail, they come back, they get more support. Linda says the system does seem to favor them for rightfully or wrongfully, we don't know. In your experience, how would you define a typical woman entrepreneur? What differentiates them from the rest? Because, and I hate asking long questions, but please indulge me. Because I still believe that society still grooms women not to do that, right? And it allows men to go out and make mistakes and come back and be redeemed and do it again. Which is this woman that you work with that actually goes out there and says, bugger this world, I'm going to make it?
That's such a good question. But before I answer it, Rams, if you allow me, I just want to double tap on two things that the rest of the panelists have brought up. I think it's the issue of access and technology. We did go into it a little bit, but one thing that I want to bring to light is the fact that we somewhat forget that there's a majority that does not have access. And as much as we think that we have attained some or closed the gaps, we are there, but not quite. We work with a lot of entrepreneurs who are in the township areas or in rural areas. And what I've realized personally is even when you're trying to hold a session on Zoom, it is almost impossible. I know the world has somewhat moved, especially after COVID, where I can have these conversations with you on Zoom and it would be comfortable. But we also need to remember there's a majority that has been left behind in terms of technological advancement. So as much as that is really critical to growing businesses and simplifying processes, that's an area that, multiple stakeholders need to look at rather than just saying, it's a public or private sector. I feel like it needs a multifaceted approach. And then just the other point that was brought up that I thought I would double tap on is entrepreneurship in schools. So in my sector, I know there's various networking partners, including ourselves, who are doing work within in high schools, especially focusing on how to encourage an entrepreneurial mindset, because that's one of the areas. When I was looking at various research items, a lot of them were saying one of the reasons why women are disqualified from certain conversations is because they are not deemed as educated enough or having the capacity to withhold certain things. I'm not going to get into the financing bit, but you touched on it as well. Women are not seen as capable of, like Linda said, articulating the business idea, but also understanding their own finances, understanding what collateral means, understanding what ownership looks like. So those are some of the areas.
But that's ironic, isn't it, right? Yeah, before you even continue, it's completely ironic. These are the same people who run households' budgets. These are the people who make sure that 1 rand goes to a length of 210 cents. And suddenly they're told that they cannot understand balance sheets and stuff like that. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I suppose these are the biases that we need to break, Women need to negotiate from a place of power. That's what I always say, that we need to inform ourselves. We also need to take it as our own accountability and responsibility to know what we are talking about when it comes to business. Because a lot of us also in the home environment, especially where you have both male and females, we do negate to some extent the responsibility of understanding the household. How much do we make? What is our revenue as a couple? What is our revenue as a family? What have we invested in? So I'm saying that more work could be done in terms of how we articulate, how we understand our businesses, but also those biases do exist. It would be easier for a man to say, well, I need X amount and this is how I'm going to repay. While it might be easy for that man to articulate it that way with the confidence that he has, a woman almost feels like she has to do double the job. So it's more than just me articulating what I need to and me guaranteeing that I can pay back, but there's also a little bit more. I have to bring more paperwork. I need to prove more. So unfortunately, that's where we are in terms of the biases that currently exist.
Yep, but I think, Rams, there's also another element that we don't talk about. I think the example of homes is valid and it makes sense. But I also think there's a big inhibitor for entrepreneurship is around the limited network that they have, right? You can be a woman, you can have the greatest idea, you probably can be the best in pitching that idea to a group of advisors, but you do need the networks. And I think what men do get right, I mean, we have a lot of close networks, right? Successful entrepreneurs will tell you that one of the things that made them successful, amongst many things, is the fact that they are part of this big network. And I think with women, we just don't have those levels of network, right, within the men's structure, and probably not as much developed within the women's structure, you know? So I also think that's a very,
Linda,
very
I'm going
big
to confess
area.
up front that this is a very controversial proposition I'm about to put to you.
Yeah.
On the back of what Irene just said, could it also mean that the flip side of it is that women are then risk averse, which makes it difficult for them to get into entrepreneurship because they worry about the things that matter. Children have to go to school, there has to be a roof, there has to be food, and therefore they're unlikely to take that 10 cents out of the rent to go take a chance with it.
I think it's controversial, but there's actually a lot of substance to what you're saying. And maybe I'll also flip it further and give you a different angle. I mean, yes, we can say women are risk averse, but there are also studies that have shown that as women investors, they tend to perform better than men because of that risk aversion and maybe being more analytical, pacing themselves, taking their time. And the chances of success with a woman, I read a particular study that indicated that the chances of success with a business are even better than their male counterparts because of
numerous studies to show that.
Exactly, because of that very reason.
Yes.
So yes, the being risk averse may hold us back as women, but I definitely think we need a platform because as we step out and take that risk, the opportunity for us doing incredibly well as an entrepreneur or just investing is significant. So I think it's a plus for women.
I need to take a break in about 2 minutes or so, but I'm going to throw your issue back at you, right?
Yeah.
The networking issue. Shouldn't women do it for themselves? And yes, it's easier said than done, right? Because again, when they go back to where they need to sell, they sell into me. Where they need to go to get money, they come into me to take that decision. But from a networking point of view, wouldn't it be more powerful? And we've seen organizations like the International Women's, whose name I forget now, and they're doing a lot of that stuff. Shouldn't we build more onto that so that sisters start doing it for themselves?
Yeah, so I think, Rams, we are doing that. Is it enough? That's the question that we should be asking now. I don't think it's enough. And why is it enough? It's because we have not been running 1,500 kilometers for the last decades and decades, right?
Yeah.
But men have been at it forever, right? So again, we're back to that catch up, right? So we do that. I do, however, believe that we must also challenge the men to reach out as well, right? To your point, men are the ones that are actually holding the keys, right? Even in corporates, I always say, if the men are the ones that are holding the senior leadership positions, they should be the ones that actually go down and reach out to those that they believe that have the capability to do that. So my view is we do that. I don't think we've been at it for long enough, and we also don't have a lot of role models. I think that time will come. Probably the next generation to come will have abundance of that. But at this point in time, I don't think it's enough. I don't think it suffices.
So, I need to take a break. And I'll give you a chance, but when we come back, I want us to talk money. Because when all is said and done, without funding, a lot of
Yeah.
us will never ever start,
Correct.
right? Or
Yeah.
at least get further.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a short break and come back shortly with my guests.